this dramatic ass sit down with Tommy. Lee girl, what is with the set it off exit? Down on my luck and my back's against the wind. Y'all, let's talk about Ready to Love. Welcome, welcome, beautiful people. It's your girl Tammy. Welcome back. We are on episode 11 of Ready to Love. Can you believe we are almost at the finale? Yes. Welcome, question crew. Welcome, new people who are recently subscribed. And those of you we know want to subscribe, just hit that button below and, join the family. Anyway, we are back in the men's lounge this week. We are back from that awful camping trip, and we have three men who are left on the show. Tommy is naming them something: the treacherous three, the tumultuous three, the tyrant three, the tyrant. Girl, we just know it's three people left. It's Quint, it's Phil, and it is Mari A. Tommy tells the men this week he wants them to challenge themselves to have them meet that women to have them meet their family. He feels like it's a great way to determine if this is the right person for you. He says family will not hold back. And he thinks that it's important that the men make this critical decision by them meeting some of the most important people in their life. So first up, we got Quint and Lee, and they are meeting his cousin Darius. His cousin Darius actually seemed to be pretty cool, and Quint and Darius seem to be pretty close. So Lee walks in, Darius says hello, Quint says hello. They start having a conversation. Honestly, I don't understand the dynamic of this, but I think I'm starting to understand how Ready to Love is sort of doing this part of the show. I honestly, for my last review, told y'all I think 5 people needed to be home by now. We needed to just have Aries and Phil on the show, and we needed to have Quint and Janelle, because I feel like those are the only true connections on this show. There's a little connection between Maria and Jessica. I don't think it's enough to sustain, but this narrative to keep having Lee on the show and Kat on the show, it just feels like they're just trying to produce something from this dynamic because so much has gone wrong. So at this point, let's just try to keep making it seem like these people are in a love triangle when they're not. Anyway, Darius meets Lee. They seem to hit it off. He enjoys her. This is actually the most personality I feel like we've gotten out of Lee in this entire season. I feel like she's kind of just been, like I said earlier, dead on arrival when it comes to her personality. I feel like she's tried to, date different guys, but even on those other dates outside of Quint, we just haven't seen a lot of personality. And I don't buy the narrative that, if I just am not into somebody, I'm just going to be dead on the date. Then why go out in general? Like, you still have to be yourself, even when you're out with people. Everybody doesn't have to be a love match, but if you're asking people to give you more on a date, i.e. when she was talking to Red, you can't be the boring person too. It doesn't work out in that capacity. And I kind of felt like Lee gave us, while being very nice and, seemingly nice and seemingly sweet, Lee kind of gave us boring this whole season. And so the connection between, her and the men, even if they're not her person, hell, even the men, when they were not her person, they still tried to give her some type of personality. And I just don't feel like she gave that back. So either way, we sit here with this, discussion date where they get to know her. Darius says he thinks that Lee is sweet. He seems that, her and Quint are very similar in their personalities. And, he certainly thinks that she could be a good option for him. Quint says he sort of agrees, but he's not really sure completely on Lee. And he definitely wants Darius to meet Janelle. Now, I have to say, this is the area for me that I was completely shocked at in this episode. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments below. But I was not expecting this drama or this light drama with Phil and Aries. They're my favorite couple at the moment on the show. I don't really have like a favorite couple. There's only like 2 people I think are into each other. And I like both couples, so I don't know. But they definitely were one of the ones I was rooting for. And I'm so shocked that this issue is coming up. So Phil has Aries meet his aunt and cousin. They start to ask questions. They ask, Aries, what does she feel about Phil? She gives a really nice breakdown of Phil to his family. And then the cousin proceeds to ask Aries, what are some reservations that you have? You're saying all these positive things about him. What is something that is you're not feeling about the situation? And Aries says that for her, there is an issue of stability when it comes to his career that she's concerned with. Now, why did she say the word stability? It was damn near like combative from last week, because when I tell you Phil's face was like, we back at this again. Green Screen Phil was not feeling that. He said he understands the inquiry she made, but he seems like she keeps bringing this up and it's happening multiple times now. He states or tries to clarify at the table with his cousin and his aunt there that when he mentioned to her about reinvention, Phil was saying that he had to reinvent his life because he wanted to make sure he was spending more time with his kid and solidly there for his kid. He's obviously not with the mom anymore, and he had to like reinvent his career so that he could, keep normal hours, stable hours. He used to be at a job where he had to travel a lot for work, and he no longer wants to do that because he wants to be there for his kid and be stable for his child. Phil then is, still like, hey, he's starting to get kind of reserved on the fact that, look, I hear what she's saying. I understand where she's coming from, but this is starting to get on my nerves. I have to agree with Phil on this. I feel like there's something with Aries, and Phil identifies this later on in the episode with her own past. Again, I'm asking this over and over again, and I've been doing so for a while. Why was Aries married twice? We kind of skip over that, which I thought was really interesting because, like I said in previous reviews, at the beginning, we have this huge mixer where we end up eliminating Brandon, I believe his name was, because he was recently divorced and it had only been 6 months and he was married to the same woman twice. We never ever get into why Aries was divorced twice, because whoever she would be with at this point would be her third husband if she got married again. And we blinked no eyes on that. And I find it hard to believe that if a man was on this show and had been married twice and had been divorced twice, that we would not be asking more questions. But for some reason, we're not wondering why that is. And I think that past is starting to creep up on us. The cousins then ask Phil how he feels about Aries, and he goes on to say that she's a beautiful person. She's the most beautiful woman he's ever met, inner beauty wise and physically. And he also says that her aura is what, attracts him to her. She says she's going to leave on a high note because, they got to step out so the person can discuss them. And it just also reminds you in this moment that I don't even know why Chris was ever an option, because it's clear that Aries and Phil have a connection both physically and emotionally. So the question just comes down to, I guess, financially, child. But she said that even though she loved what Phil said at the end and he gives her these great compliments, she still is leaving the meeting with raised concerns about his stability. I'm completely confused by this because unless there's something that we did not see on air, I'm wondering, what did you leave with past his explanation that makes you still think that there's concern? I don't know. I feel like, again, there's just something weird we don't know about Aries and we need to find out. So Maurier has his cousin Aquanetta meeting Jessica and Kat. We kind of interchange with this date. So we see a scene with Jessica, then we see a scene with Kat, and it's like a back and forth thing. Jessica's the first one up, and per usual, Jessica comes in greeting and being very friendly, and she has a seat. And they start having this conversation about Maurier and, asking her questions, and everything seems to be going well. The cousin, however, says that the family is very protective of Maurier, and they want to make sure that anybody who's dating him, that their motives are sincere. The cousin also goes on to say that they feel like if something was to go wrong, they're a very big family and they're a very connected family. And we were going to call you out on your stuff because we don't have time to play. And this is my red flag number one. Man, mind your business. I don't like this dynamic at all. I'm troubled by the idea that Maurier's family could be deeply involved in his relationships. I think that this is such a red flag for women. Your relationship, in my opinion, is between you and your significant other, whoever your partner may be. I'm not a fan of families that get involved in people's drama when it's not necessary, meaning that there's not some sort of domestic violence angle, there's not some like scary situation going on, or you're coming to a family member for advice, specifically asking them something. But I think naturally butting your head in and specifically already setting up early on the scenario that if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then Maurier, like that to me was already weird. And it gave off the vibe that both Jessica or Kat, although there is no connection with Kat, but Jessica or Kat would be in a troubled situation, really any woman. And this is why we need to hear from Maurier baby mama. Any woman would be in a situation that would be weird if his family is constantly in his business. I don't care who you are, ma'am. Do not be up in my business with me and my man. What's going on between us is what's going on between us. That family button in is the surest way for you not to be in a relationship. Anyway, they mix the date up and the cousin meets Kat on another day. Kat says she's excited about meeting a man's family because she feels like when you Meet a man's family, it tells you a lot about who she is. The production then gets messy and asks Kat, how does she feel about Jessica? And she says she pretends to not know who Jessica is. And I feel like this is another indicator to me, as what I said prior, that Kat is as messy as Jessica and Janelle can be at times. And specifically, I think Janelle can be at times when it comes to that whole and their whole dilemma. I don't find her to be an innocent. I think she just plays that well, but she is just as messy as Janelle can be. And I think that we see her cattiness a lot through this. There were multiple scenes between Jessica and Marié and Kat and Marié with the cousin. And there were several times that Kat brought up the other woman or the other person. Jessica never did that the entire episode, but she did bring her up multiple times in here. And I was like, why, girl? It's just be on your date. So back on the date with Jessica, we see that Marié is preparing to pray. Their food has arrived at the table. Marié then begins to pray over the food. They all join hands or just pray individually and close their eyes. Once they're done, Aquanetta then proceeds to say, or Netta, as she liked to be called, either one she said was fine, so I'm going to call her Netta. Netta proceeds to say, you don't get that every day. And Jessica's like, what do you mean? And she's like, a man that prays over his food. And Jessica, she's like that. Jessica's like, oh, okay. And she's like, yeah, that's rare. And again, this is just an indicator to me that maybe Netta or the family maybe hold, Marié in some type of esteem, which I have no problem with his family loving on him and the women in his family loving on him. But I also could see how they could be problematic if they start to step in. It reminded me of the type of mom energy that steps in with a mother that's overstepping her bounds in a marriage or relationship with her son's wife, and like gets all up in their business and makes her feel like my son is the greatest thing since God created, and you need to be so proud that I raised him a certain way. It was giving off those vibes, and the type of mother-in-law from hell vibes that you get early on that should be an indicator to you that this might not be the man for you if you don't have his mama under control. But the cousin does say that they look good together. And she asked Jessica about the spiritual aspect. Jessica says that, she's a Christian. She believes in Christianity. She knows that Marié is spiritual, and that is something that they're kind of having a conversation about and around. She said it doesn't completely bother her, but she is clear about who she believes in. On Kat's side of things, the cousin asks the same thing about spirituality. And Kat says that she believes the same thing that Marié is. She's not very much on the Christian or traditional Christian side, but she is more so on the spiritual side of things. And she believes, she's open to whatever. They even exchange crystals. She says she believes in manifestations. But one thing I know Kat don't believe in is dating a broke man. And I'm not saying Marié is broke, but he don't have enough money for her. And I'm just not feeling this vibe. At this point, I kind of feel like Kat is just trying to compete because she don't care for Jessica. So, and not even just on Kat alone, production is keeping up this dramatics with them that just doesn't make any sense at all. Marié ain't got no love triangle because honestly, I don't know if either one of these women are going to mix with him. I do understand, however, that, the faith thing can be a lot for some people. And I think, we do see interfaith couples all the time. We see people that are married to people of different faiths that work together well and are able to raise children and everything. I have a family member who's Muslim, and he's never dated a Muslim woman or married one. And both of his wives have been Christian women. So it can work with couples that are interfaith. It can work with couples that, are spiritual, whatever. I don't know if it could work with you if you don't believe in the Lord at all. But it definitely can work with interfaith couples. It is a lot of work, though, around philosophies and ideas. And so, the cousin says that she likes Jessica. She sort of ends the day saying she thinks Jessica is cool and it was nice meeting her. She seems to really, really like Kat. She feels like Kat is very open. Jessica said that she enjoys their family dynamic because the cousin also asked her about children. Jessica says that she wants children. She doesn't have any kids at all. And, she at least wants like one or two. She has a niece. She loves playing with her niece, da, 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 da. And she asked Kat the same question. Kat says she's open either way. If her partner wants kids, it's cool. If her partner doesn't want kids, it's cool. And this part really threw me off because I have no issues with anything that Kat said on that point. Like, that's a dynamic answer to give. And the cousin enjoys that answer as well. But what's throwing me off is that Marié's biggest connection until this point has been Jessica for the whole show up until like last week, right? Until episode 10. And they talk all the time on the phone. But it was throwing me off when Marie's cousin was saying to Kat, or at the table with Marie, about how, you know, Marie has his boys. So I don't know. I don't know if Marie has two kids or one. I thought he had a daughter and a son, but I'm not sure. But what I thought was weird was that they've never discussed, or maybe they have discussed, and was this a different side of Marie we're seeing, where Jessica would want kids? I don't think she would have hid that from him. So I thought it was weird that he could go either way on children, knowing that she does definitely want kids. So she would want more kids. Whereas he knows, if he knows that, and they talk all the time, and you don't think that you want to have more children, possibly, I don't know if he ever stated that he didn't. Where do you stand on that? And then if that's the case, why are you still dating this woman or interested in this woman if you know she definitely wants kids? It really didn't make any sense. The dates end and we go back to each respective date to see how the cousin feels now that the women are gone. The cousin says that she likes Jessica. She calls her a little uppity. I didn't know how I felt about that dynamic because I really don't like when Black people categorize other Black people as uppity based on really nothing, or if you're well spoken or you articulate yourself well. I didn't get that Jessica gave her snooty vibes. And I sometimes wonder if you're like a little bit more down home or a little bit more chill, or maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say urban because that sounds weird, but I feel like sometimes we label each other like a real weird way that feels kind of productive. But she does say that she enjoys Kat. She thinks Kat is, very open and would fit in with their family, I guess, more openly. And, but he has a decision to make because he says he really enjoys his time that he spent with Jessica and they talk a lot. He's really built this rapport. But the thing with him and Kat are new. Marie, you don't have a deliberation, sir. Neither one of these women are for you for multiple reasons. You know what, y'all? I left out one other thing. Did y'all notice at the table with Marie's cousin when she was talking with Jessica, and Jessica said how, her and Marie talk often because she was asking about the kids, and she's like, "Yeah, we talk all the time. He knows how I feel," because she asked him, "Did they have any reservations?" And Jessica said, "Not really. We talk often. We talk like almost every day. So I feel like I know a lot about him. Did he tell you that we talk often?" And the cousin goes, "No." And then she says, but it's a good thing that he picks up the phone because he's so busy. Girl, what do Marie do? The way she made it seem like Jessica should be so, happy that Marie is giving her time because he's so busy. What do Marie do, girl? Okay. Is he a deacon at the church? What does Marie do that he is so busy that taking a phone call is something that he normally just doesn't have time for? Like, where is he working at? What is he doing that's taking up so much time that he can't even pick up the cell phone to say hello to somebody? When I tell you Aquanetta was doing the most, it was ridiculous. Anyway, fast forward, we are now out with Quentin and his cousin again. And his cousin Quincy is meeting Janelle. And they sit down and have a chit chat. They start talking, Quint, per usual, lights up. Janelle lights up when she sees him. There's just clearly a connection with these two. And they sit down to talk with the cousin, and he's saying hi. And she's like, "Oh, you're giving me like the lovey-dovey eyes today." And he's like, "I always give you the lovey-dovey eyes." When I tell you this man is smitten, he is smitten. So she says, "Not per usual, but I'm liking it. I'm liking it." So they start talking. The cousin, we find out that the cousin actually moved to Dallas from Atlanta. They're not from Atlanta, neither him or Quint. And then Quint followed him to Dallas. They also talk about the fact that Quentin, he's been doing, obviously he has a business, he has a fitness business. And he says, like 90% of the pictures that Quint has online, I take. And he said, maybe I'll be taking some, fiance photos one day or whatever. So she's like, okay, maybe. So they kind of have a good chit chat. He asked Janelle about, what she likes about Quint. And then they discuss her timeline for like, marriage or having children, because he knows Quint, like enjoys his family and, wants to have children. And she says, she doesn't, she always brings up the same thing, which I feel like is a good thing, that she's very upfront with the idea that she knows the age difference between them. And, she knows where she is in her life. So she says, I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm 41. She said, so there's a bit of an age difference, not extreme, but enough that, the fertility side of things. And so she just says, I know he wants kids. I'm open to having children. I do want to adopt as well. I'm open to having kids. And he says, well, how's that timeline? Because Quinn is kind of young. And what if he's not ready right yet, yet to have kids? She said, I do understand that. However, I am open to adoption. She said, however, if we were trying to take the natural road, then it's something that if we're not going to be doing it sooner than later, then it's going to leave that option off the table. And I honestly applaud her for her honesty, because something I've been thinking about lately, and I think we miss this a lot with Black women in the conversation around fertility, despite the fact that we've had conversations about this over the last 4 years. Um, the amount of Black women who die in childbirth is significantly higher, regardless of age. But it's even higher when you get to like the 30s and the 40s. And this is not to scare anybody. I think we all know the stats. And I think Janelle's being realistic about maybe her fear. I would love for Ready to Love to be serious for once and talk about that on camera, because being a woman of a certain age and, dating someone, I don't think she's trying to fasten him to fatherhood. I think she is fearful of dying in childbirth because it would already be a high risk pregnancy. And, you have to go through all these different emotions. If you end up getting pregnant in your 40s, and many women get pregnant in their 40s and have good childbirth. But if you even watch Married to Medicine or anything like that, if you ever listen to Dr. Jackie and Dr. Simone lay out the facts, honey, it is a lot. And so if you are thinking about having kids in your 40s, there's something wrong with that. You can absolutely have a healthy pregnancy, but there is a lot of care that's involved. There's care that's involved regardless of age, but even more so once you hit about 35. So I think that her fear is like, I don't want to end up going through a bunch of like fertility treatments and extreme treatments and possible, losing of babies or losing of life, blood, all types of high risk issues. So I think that's why she's like, hey, if we get it done earlier, and maybe she's giving the timeline that her OBGYN is giving her. And so I appreciate the honesty, but this may be a issue for her and Quinn. She leaves, she lets them stay and enjoy the rest of their meal. And Q asks his cousin, what does he think? His cousin says that he likes both ladies. He thinks Lee's very sweet. He thinks that Lee and, Quinn are very much alike. He does see the connection. He said he likes Janelle as well. They're both very beautiful women. He said, but when Janelle walked in, you lit up. And like just literally your energy changed. And, I see that direction with you and her. So, I mean, you got a hard decision to make. Now, y'all know by now, my favorite part of this is hearing and talking and listening to y'all. So don't forget to drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of the video and let me know what you think of the episode. And let's get back into it. So here we go back again with Phil and Aries. They just really want to make me mad about one of my favorite couples on this show. So Phil and Aries meet up in the park and they have this bike ride and they have a conversation about how did they feel about, the date and everything like that. They cop a squat and on a bench and they start having this chat. And Aries, lays it out how she felt meeting his cousins and things like that. And she talks about how even when meeting his aunt and his cousin, she was a little apprehensive because of the stability conversation. She also brings up the fact that, she wants to have more talks with Phil because she's starting to want to ask more serious questions. And one of the things that disturbed her was the fact that Phil didn't have a game plan for him. I'm sorry, Phil didn't have a game plan for her meeting the mother of his son. I want to press the brakes real quick on the two of them because something is throwing me off. Usually around episode 11 or 10 of Ready to Love, Ready to Love isn't a show that runs for a very long time. It runs for about, I want to say, like 8 to 12 weeks total. And so these people don't know each other that long. They may know each other for like under 2 months before they're making a decision. So it's weird to me that she wanted him to have a game plan for meeting the mother of his child so that I guess she could meet his child at some point. I think Aries is doing the most very early. And again, this is making me wonder, what were her two previous marriages about? What was the dynamic in those situations? Why didn't they work out? How come we haven't asked more of those questions on camera? Because I think that that's critical to knowing if we're doing a third situation at some point, what's the deal? Now, I have no problems with her asking fundamentals. Like she said, I just want to be caught up in the teenage love affair energy. I want to know more about you as an individual on a serious note, like how your finances, or at least are you stable? How is your relationship with your kid's mom? I get her wanting to know those things. And I think Phil does too. But I feel like some of the things she's asking, I mean, I don't know that he needed to have a game plan for you meeting the mother of his children at this moment. You're in a bubble situation on a reality show. Like, I don't think he needs to be thinking about that until you actually get offline, you get off television and you do the you him thing in real life. Like, if this lasts past the TV show, then maybe we could have a chit chat about you meeting the mother of my child. But right now we on national television. I think his kid is relatively young, so he probably doesn't even watch this show. And I'm sure she's seen who you are slightly, because if she watched the show, she would see who she was. But let's do the you me thing before we do the us thing. And then I'll figure out a game plan for how I want to introduce y'all. Phil and her are still chatting. She asked him, he asked her about the stability thing again, and this sort of comes up because Phil asked her, like, what is she looking for in a partner? Well, she asked Phil what he's looking for in a partner. I apologize. And Phil says, I'm looking for somebody I could laugh with, like I have a good time with. I want somebody that makes me happy and who I make happy. I want us to go out and do good things. I want us to go to comedy shows and concerts. I'm a very simple guy. And he says, I am the type of person that just wants to enjoy my life. I want somebody who understands me and understands the little things that I like. He said, you already do that really well. And she goes, yeah. I already do all of that with my friends though. Y'all, what I tell you, I was like, Aries, girl, what are we doing? Did you really dismiss some of the tangibles of love to try to just keep having this conversation about finance? She says, I already do that with all my friends. I just want to know, like, my things that are important to me are loyalty and stability. I have to say at this moment, I am really shocked at Aries. I feel like she does not know how to communicate properly in a relationship. I think dismissing everything he said as if it meant nothing in a relationship was sad to see. I don't want to see that of a woman of a certain age in terms of how to have a conversation properly with your partner. And it, again, is making me wonder, what were these past relationships? It's clear that there is some type of past trauma with instability that is coming up for her now. You can tell in the conversation when she starts saying she wants to have mature discussions that she missed some flags in her past, maybe with her children's father, maybe with her previous husband. I don't know the dynamic of the children. I don't know if they're both from one man or if she had a child with each man. I don't know. But it's one of those things where you could tell she missed a flag with the situation, and she's trying not to have that again. But the problem is, you cannot bring your past drama into the situation every single time. Either you believe this man is serious at his current job and what he's doing, or you don't think he is, and then you should just leave the situation. But continuing to question him about his stability when he's already explained more than once, and making him feel like he needs to make up for something that somebody else didn't do, is completely out of order. Y'all, why are we on this conversation again for the 8,000th time? Why are we sitting down having this fake date with this same conversation about something that Lee already knows the answer to? Having to have somebody explain over and over and over again why they're not giving you attention and time, even when they weren't on the camping trip, because that started to get on my nerves, that it was all about the camping trip. And when they were on the trip, there were several moments in the past where you were not getting the time that you wanted with this man, which, by the way, time with somebody is a two-way street. It's not just a guy constantly calling you up to say, hey, you want to hang out, you want to hang out. You also have to show that person that you're interested in hanging out and producing some type of, dynamic. Really, on Ready to Love, it's not even that deep. You could just contact production and they will have you go out on a date, because that's how they really set up these dates. Production call these people and they tell them, hey, we're going to have you go out with this person, or you're going to go on a group date, or they'll ask you, who would you like to keep seeing? And then they go out on that date. So this is really not that deep. This to me was just an unnecessary scene to a fake story with a fake ending, where it's going to be this thing where Quentin apologizes for not really being completely clear, even though I think a man not spending time with you is completely clear. Lee acts like she's not really sure how the whole thing works with dating, and that everything was that she couldn't spend time with him camping. They had multiple times together where they could have spent time together in between, and that didn't go as well either. Literally at the date with his ex, he brings up the fact that he hasn't really been consistent in the ghosting situation. That was a time for Lee to drop out right then. Then there was the moment when they were at her friend's house. He's actually spending time with her and her friend, and he's getting no energy from her. Her friend is asking most of the questions, which she was supposed to, but he was asking, like, hey, give me some information about y'all dynamic. What's your relationship? I want to see what's happening. And we get no light from her. So it's like dead bug energy again. And, literally Muffin, the friend, is more energetic than Lee is. And it was just basically like the low energy was there, the somberness. It just felt like he wasn't really getting anything. He's like, well, who's the party friend? Who's the friend that likes to hang out? And I think it's also important to point out that they don't seem to have the same lifestyle, despite them being both fitness people. Her friend, mentioned her as like a grandma. And then Lee mentions all these, like, things she likes to do socially and actively at this very last meeting with his cousin, but it doesn't seem to match up with the lifestyle that her friend says she leads. So it's just giving a lot of mixed signals on both ends. And honestly, we did not need this scene. Jessica and Maurier meet up. I didn't understand this dynamic, but okay. They meet up. Maurier wants to take her someplace nice. They have a conversation, and I think he was saying he was trying to just reconnect to see how she felt about everything. They start having this conversation. I don't know why Chris was brought up. Thank you, Maurier, for bringing that up again. But he called, he ends up talking with her, and they called to confirm that Chris was in fact the one that said it. I mean, Maurier could have just said it at the house. Chris could have really said it at the house. We know how that whole dynamic went. We don't want to go back down that road. But they meet up to just talk about, some real talk between the two of them. And I have to say that they give good energy here. They could make a cute couple, but again, I just don't know where Maurier is with any of these women. With Kat, I don't think he makes enough money. I don't think Kat and his lifestyle will really align despite all the spirituality chat. Honestly, I think Kat wants to live a certain life, and I don't think it's going to include being like a freedom fighter or a hotep, which Maurier is, or he claims to be. I don't see Kat in protest, hanging out with him, doing that kind of stuff. And I just don't see the reality of that. I don't see Alley Cat out there with Black Lives Matter t-shirts on. I don't mean in terms of not being down for their people, but I mean just being that ride or die protest civil rights girl. I don't see it. And it isn't a bad thing. I think Kat wants a specific type of lifestyle based on what she talked about earlier with her friend and some of the things that were brought up. I think she wants to lead like a very, like a housewife life, maybe kept housewife. Even when Maurier mentioned that he was trying to go to Mali to live, she's like, oh, I can have a home there, but we're not going to be living there. So I just think that their values don't align in the reality of what he says he wants for his life and what she looks like her future life will look like. I think which is being like a housewife living a certain type of lifestyle. And I don't think Maurier's finances or his dreams for his life line up with that. When it comes to Jessica, I just feel like she has all the elements of something that Maurier could use if Maurier was not a hotep. If Maurier was trying to be like an actual local politician in real life, Jessica's absolutely that girl that would be his Michelle Obama. Like, she's on point, she's well focused, she's a good businesswoman, but she also is that wife that's going to go around and introduce you to everybody, i.e. what she did for Chris at the hoedown. She's that wife that's going to work the room and make sure everybody got my husband campaign button on, everybody knows what they're doing, here's everybody's places, this is what we're going to individually do. And I feel like that gives that Michelle Obama, that wife energy. But I feel like that's going to come with someone who has maybe a more traditional lifestyle. Like, she could probably be married to like an alderman or a city councilman if you want to do community-based stuff. But with Maurier, I feel like he wants to do more like freedom fighter, like hotep stuff. And that's not going to probably work for her if it's going to be like radical or extreme. I don't think that's Jessica's vibe, but if he was going to be like a local politician, if he was going to be like a community, maybe a community organizer or somebody, that was going to try to move up into like political office within the area or community that would serve their people, I think she would absolutely be the person to be by his side that will work with him hand in hand. Like, let's get a game plan. Let's focus. She's going to be that wife you can take to dinners, take to events, take to situations, that's going to introduce you to everybody in the room, make sure all her sorors got your campaign button. That's your girl, Jessica. But I don't see that for Maurier's life either. And it's clear that Jessica's not comfortable with the idea of Maurier just totally moving or them moving to Africa in 10 years and just leaving the US. So there's clearly some things that need to be worked out if they're seriously considering each other. I do feel the energy that they like each other, but I don't think it's enough to be a long-term couple. Child, when I tell you this scene with Lee choosing herself it was a bit much. My face was Tommy. Like, why? I'm only here because y'all paid me to show up. Because when I tell you, what was this for? Lee, ma'am, officially, your person hasn't been here for quite some time. It never really was Quint after a while because he's just not giving the time that he needs to cater to your situation. And you knew that a while ago. So the dynamic of making it seem like somebody's pulling you in and playing you when you absolutely have been seeing that for multiple times over. Because the date with him at the campsite, we're at episode 10. That means there's been multiple times in between here where you have been around this man, you either been on the phone or not been on the phone with him, where he hasn't been consistent. More than a couple of episodes back, he's in front of his ex and we hear him say that he's kind of ghosted her and he hasn't been calling. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you choose yourself then? I don't think this man was dragging her along. I do think that Quint also wackly played into the dynamic of pretending like he had two people going on when he really didn't. And for that, he was lame. But I also think it's lame to keep trying to play off this story. I feel like production just kept her and Kat on to stir the pot and to make sure that these men kind of had a choice to make because we're down to the finale and they wanted to make it dramatic. I really did not appreciate this dramatic, as the world turns exit of I'm choosing myself. Girl, you should have chose yourself weeks ago. Weeks ago. And I really hate that they do this. I mean, if you're gonna do this, at least add another like fresh face and let this person go home. I honestly just feel like this was her release, similar to Sierra's release, where she probably was ready to go home 2, 3 weeks ago and they asked her to stay on, I don't know, for extra pay or whatever. I don't even know if they pay these people in the show, but honestly, I would have left weeks ago once I realized this man was completely into this other woman and he was not giving me the time and attention. I don't care what breadcrumbs that they were leaving or that production asked her to stay. I would not do this for national television. So finally, we're getting closer to the end of this ride, child. We got one more episode for the finale where people get to choose who they get to choose. And we either going to go home, we're going to stay together, we're going to be together, but this show is going to be over. And that's where the applause comes in. We're back at the men's lounge with the three guys. Tommy sits down. He asks them, he wants to know the good, the bad, the ugly, the incredible, the expected, everything. He wants to know the entire details of this entire week that they've had with the ladies. He starts talking to Phil. Phil says that, his family met Aries. They really loved her. They thought she was a beautiful person. They thought she was a great businesswoman, but there was some concerns around the stability conversation. He says that he doesn't know how to reassure her any more than he already is. And he honestly feels like it has something to do with somebody else that's not him. And it is going to be a problem for them if they can't get around that situation. Because whatever her issues are regarding his stability, she's not accepting his answer, or she has some other underlying issue that has nothing to do with him, that is affecting her not trusting that, they would be okay. Marie says that he has a love triangle. You do not have a love triangle, Marie. Both of these women need to leave, as do you. Marie says that he has a love triangle between him and Jessica and Kat, and he just doesn't know what to do. His cousin liked both of them. His cousin thought they were both great women. His cousin leaned a little bit more towards Kat, and he sees that, but then Jessica feels like an old familiar. Both of these women are not for you, sir, and you are not for them. But he has a big decision to make. Tommy then proceeds to tell him he's in a love triangle. When I tell you the rehearsal was incredible. This is so scripted, I swear. And then proceeds to tell him you got a big decision to make. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what to do. Sir, respectfully go home. Last, Quint and Janelle. He says that his cousin met both people. He thinks that they're both dynamic, but he definitely sees more of the spark with Janelle, with Quint and him. Tommy then proceeds to tell him that he had a conversation with Lee this week and that Lee has chosen to exit the process. She feel like he just wasn't giving the time that he said that he wanted to have with her, or the time needed to see if their connection could be more. And she chose to leave the process. Quint seems slightly surprised, but also says it is what it is, literally. And again, for the 85th time, a clear path that man was not still checking for her in that moment. And that's okay. I really hate that production had both of them play this out. And I'm going to say this. I do not like when they do this, because they also did this with Kayla and, oh God, what was his name when they did Miami? So background stuff, and I think Carmisha is the one that had this on her show, so y'all go watch that episode if y'all want to. It was Randall. Carmisha did an interview with Randall, and she talked with him, and he basically said that the scene where him and Kayla was supposed to break up for real was fake, and that him and Kayla had a conversation like the night before, and they had basically said that, they didn't think they were a match or wasn't going to work out. But that scene when it was like him, his brother, and Kayla, and he eventually says, like, I don't want you. It's not going to be you. He was pissed off because that day was like Kayla's birthday or whatever. They had already talked out the situation on the phone. They said that they weren't for each other, but they was going to still kick it and hang out for her birthday. But production kept pushing them to meet up that day to have a breakup on camera. So when I tell you, this is why I'm not feeling the whole lead dynamic, because I feel like a lot of this is just them setting up scenes to try to make us feel some sort of way instead of this just naturally occurring people can just exit and walk out, and then we can just dwindle down to people. They keep creating this fake scene so that we can feel some way about one person and not about the other. I don't know, y'all. Y'all let me know how y'all think it's going. It doesn't even matter because we're about to get, well, it matters what y'all think. So, of course, I want to know. But it doesn't really even matter because we're at the last episode, which is next week.